Dr. Jazz.
Yeah. And I wanted to start this talk actually with you as a band leader. Uh, what's happening there in that department? Have you been writing some new music, or like are is there like a band record in planning, or what was happening there in the past few years?
Fair question. Good question. Like you said, COVID kind of put a full stop to a lot of things. And yeah, I mean, a few things changed in my life, personally and musically that sort of made me rethink priorities and things like that. I have a couple of things eh, ready to go. It's just finding the time and the energy to get them together.
Mm.
So the short answer to your question is no, not really, but potentially yes. Yeah,
Okay.
I have a record that I have to mix that I did some time ago with Jack Walrath,
Oh wow.
Allison Miller, and Bruce Saunders.
Wow, beautiful. I love. We did the duo record with Bruce last year. I'll
Was that
send you a
right?
link. Yeah, yeah, it was
Yeah.
beautiful. He's so good, man. Yeah.
Great player, man. Great
Yeah.
guy, player.
Yeah.
So a good few years old, and it was just one of those things I never quite got it together to finish it. So that's sitting there. So I'm glad you brought that up because, Chris, these days, when you talk about making a record,
Oh,
what do you really mean anymore, So I'm still stuck in the mindset of, a record's an actual thing,
I know. Yeah. Yeah.
it's an actual physical object and it's real in the real world. And it's cool to look at and there's things to read on it. I know a lot of people don't think of it that way. Even jazz people, we're sort of old fashioned to think that way. So
Mm.
I think I have to get my head around that, like what that means to make a record, put a record out, put the energy into doing that.
Mm. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I have another project with a great tenor saxophone player from Pittsburgh. So I lived in Pittsburgh for 2 years. And Pittsburgh's kind of an interesting place. It has a rich jazz history, but it's a lot of people came from there left Pittsburgh to go other places.
Mm.
So I lived there for 2 years around the turn of the century, 2000 to 2002, and got to know some great players there. And there's a tenor player there named Lou Stallute,
Mm.
who
Oh,
great hard bop player. He's about 80 now.
wow.
Terrific player though, and I did a record with him and Steve Johns and a great piano player who lives near me named Daniel Kelly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I know that.
And that's another one I've got to finish. But COVID kind of just stopped in its tracks. Just sort of changed everything.
Yeah.
In some ways. So
Yeah.
so those are two I think about them often, and I think, gee, I'd love to get those done. In some kind of way. Like
Mm.
especially Lou, being older, he'd never done his own record, and
Mm.
um, even if it just gets released, I'm sure a lot of people in and around Pittsburgh, out there would enjoy it, would dig it.
Mm. Yeah.
So, thank you for bringing that up.
It's good news, man. I mean, come on. I
Yeah,
mean, nowadays, I always talk with musicians. We just did a workshop now this weekend. We were talking with the musicians, like, yeah, what's the idea of an album? I also still love, a booklet, but then if you make a CD, it's basically you sell them only on concerts. So,
yeah,
just to release an album, maybe just on Bandcamp, I guess that works as well, even though, yeah, I don't know, it's a tough
yeah,
question.
yeah.
It's,
I have a Bandcamp page.
yeah, yeah,
Recently,
I saw it. It's
I
great.
don't, I don't, I'm not really using it. I need to devote a little more time to just get a little more dexterous with how to use it. I know some people do great things with it. It's taken me a while, and it's funny. It's funny you should mention that because I've sold last week. I sold a CD. Somebody wanted an actual CD in Canada, and just yesterday somebody bought one in the UK. Now that's great, except um, I sent the one to the guy in Canada. The shipping was so expensive.
Yeah.
It actually cost me $6 to, you know, even after, it's one thing to give away a CD for free, but to actually pay to give it away for free.
Yeah, you have to add there if you go to your Bandcamp, there's
Yeah.
like I don't know under which menu, but like there's this section shipping, and
Yeah.
there you can actually add already. You know, I do that like from where I live in Europe. Let's say the shipping is $3, and to the States it's 6. So then the
Yeah.
people basically pay for your CD plus the shipping automatically. So
True.
you should
True.
check that out.
I underestimated what the cost was, or maybe I was out of date.
Yeah,
It
it went
cost
up like crazy.
$17 to send it to Canada. It
Wow.
cost 21 to send it to the UK.
Yeah, yeah, it's insane. Yeah,
I didn't know that. Now I do. So I have to do that. I have to go, up those prices
updated. Yeah,
with an apology saying, look, I'm sorry, it's so expensive, but that's what it costs.
that's the reality. Yeah.
I have free shipping to America. I have it sort of included in the price, I guess you could say. But, because to America, it's like, it's $3 or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
But I had no idea, but now I do. Now I do. So it's good news that these people around the world are still buying the CDs, but it's not good news because it's actually costing me money.
Yeah, yeah, you should update. But it's nice to see always. I always get like, today just one guy from Chicago ordered like the last CD, and I was like, yeah, well,
Yeah.
that's nice. People browse and then stumble upon your music. I think that's a nice thing still.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think that's what's changed. I hear a lot of musicians complain about, oh, streaming, they're ripping us off, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, man. I mean, unless you're Bruce Springsteen or you two, or and you were selling 30 million
Yeah,
albums worldwide, 35, 40 years ago. Jazz musicians, folk musicians, we've never made any money off records, a little bit.
sure.
But a record deal didn't mean much financially. So nowadays, if we get it together, we can actually reach the people who are interested in our music.
Exactly. Yeah.
And in a way, I think if you're willing and able to put in the time and the effort, this is coming from someone who so far has not been willing or able to do that. It's actually a better situation.
Yeah.
It's better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's nowadays even the labels. I even stopped releasing records on labels because it's just, they don't ship. I mean, they don't pay first of all for the studio time anymore. Kind of labels the music that we do, and they don't ship CDs anymore to journalists or do the PR. So then it's like, shit. Then you better do it on your own, I guess. That's you own the masters,
Right.
everything, and
Yeah.
and you have
Yeah.
complete
It is.
control.
It's a lot more work, but
Yeah,
the rewards are greater too. I mean,
exactly.
the CD that I sold, I mean, leaving aside the shipping, you know, if I made $11, I get to keep that.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
was on a label, you wouldn't get $11. You wouldn't get that. You'd get a tiny fraction, and you wouldn't even get that until they'd recoup their costs.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've been reading this book. It's a lot of things I knew and had heard before. It's about, I forget the title of it. It's about Miles, Coltrane, and Bill Evans, basically all three together, and like their pads and how they all came together, around 1958, 59 in that band, culminating in Kind of Blue, by which time Bill had actually left the band. Bill wasn't in the band
Yeah.
with Kind of Blue, which I always forget. He really didn't play for very long. It was like a year.
Mm.
And then they all kind of went their separate ways. But talking about the whole record business, none of these guys made any money. I mean, Miles made money. Miles
Yeah,
finally
that's
made money.
different. Yeah.
Miles was like the one big jazz star of that era. You know, he made money like, you know, Frank Sinatra made money and the Beatles were later made money, you know, but he was the only one. Everybody else, you know, they didn't, you know, even selling a few thousand records, you know, they didn't make much money. You know, if anything, they made enough money to keep doing it.
Yeah.
And today it's really no different, you know, although we don't even have that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone teaches. I mean, most of the musicians I talk to are like 90% teach and, you know, do some gigs, obviously. But it's just like a
Yeah.
small percentage still tours, you know, from
Yeah.
compared to 20 years ago or like,
Yeah.
I guess 30 years ago, right?
Tell me, where are you in Ljubljana?
I'm in Maribor, which is like 1 hour away from Ljubljana.
So do people still come there to play? I mean, what's the scene like?
I mean, Ljubljana is quite okay. You know, we have the jazz festival, which is still going on for 60 years already, and then we have one other festival, Cerkno, and but there are like weekly gigs in Ljubljana, just one gig
Mm-hmm.
per week where they bring people who are on the road from the States and
Mm-hmm.
kind of big names also. So
Mm-hmm.
uh,
There's an audience for it.
yeah, I mean, 100 people max.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the and in Maribor where I live, which is like 150,000 people, we have like 7, 8 concerts a year, and the
Mm-hmm.
audience is like 60, 70 people. So it's
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
especially after COVID, it went down everywhere in Europe. You know, the last time I toured Germany and Austria, it was like all the organizers were complaining that it's.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's tougher, I guess, than it was in your time when you were touring a lot. It's
Yeah, it is. And I often, I knew at the time, like how fortunate I was. And I hope that a lot of my colleagues realized that too. Like there are people, you know, they wouldn't have had a career if they weren't
mm,
going to Germany 4 times a year or whatever. You know, there's a great audience, there's great support.
mm,
From my from my point of view, you know, there's great support in Europe generally
yeah,
for, you know, for the arts and jazz as one of the arts, you know, and you know, it's a beautiful thing. It enabled us to express ourselves and find audiences and reach people and learn other things. You know, um I lived 2 years in Belgium, for
oh,
example.
really? How did that happen?
Um, I had a quartet with drummer Jeff Williams,
Yeah,
Neil Kirkwood on piano, and a great um, tenor player named Erwin Van Slenbroek, who goes by Erwin Van, because most people outside Flanders can't spell Van Slenbroek.
sure.
So, you know, beautiful, beautiful player. And we had this quartet and we made, was it 2 records? 2 records. And just because of various other things in my life, you know, I wanted to go and see where he
Mm.
was and what he, you know, there's great, great players there. You know,
Yeah, yeah, sure. Europe, definitely. Yeah.
but in Belgium in particular, I thought, you know, there was like a scene and players. I'm talking about, I went there in 1998.
So that's how
And
Jewels and Binoculars also happened then. That's why, because you were there, or
yeah, that
ah,
was sort
okay,
of a byproduct of that
okay,
because
okay.
those two fellas had been living in Amsterdam for some years. But you know, I thought the musicians in Belgium, you know, they weren't just trying to copy what Americans had been doing 40 years ago. You know, they kind of had their own thing, they had their own scene, and they're just great players. And I felt like I had a lot to learn from that. What was funny was, you know, I felt like those musicians and a lot of European musicians, you know, their jazz philosophy was like everything they played would have a beginning, a middle, and an end. It wasn't just I'm going to play my shit over these chord changes, dig me, and then you can do your shit over. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it was a more I'm speaking very generally. You know, it was a more compositional thing, and I was interested in that, and I dug people who did that, and of course, a lot of what happened was, you know, people heard that I was there, and they said, "Oh, well, you're American and you swing. Let's play standards, you know.
Sure.
But it was, you know, it was very, I learned a lot, and it was cool. You know, I liked it a lot.
Mm.
But oh yeah, and then Jules and
Yeah,
Binoculars.
yeah, I love that band, man.
Michael
That's such a
Moore and Michael Vatcher, you know, were both American. They're both from California. I didn't know them really. I'd met them in passing once or twice, like when they'd come to America. They'd been there since 1978 or something at that time.
yeah.
And so, you know, Belgium and I mean, Brussels, I was living in Brussels. Brussels and Amsterdam are not that far apart.
Yeah, it's quite close. Yeah.
So we started getting together and we played, and it was cool. And we both found we were both big Dylan fans. And I had a couple of tunes that I'd played with various people, and I think he did too. And we did that along with other things. And then gradually it seemed like I thought it'd be a good idea. Well, why don't we just concentrate on the Dylan material? You know, there's so much here, we can do so much with it. And so that's what we did. That's how it started. That's how it started.
Yeah, and then you invited Frizzell as well, right? I mean,
Yeah, he's on that third record,
yeah,
which
yeah.
I'm very happy with that record. I'm glad that record happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a
Because
guitarist, so you know, I know that's right. I'm such a fan of Bill, so I love what he contributed. It's like a natural fit in that band because, and so especially the music, you know, it's like him
yeah.
just
Well,
beautiful.
he, you know, he's a big
Yeah,
Dylanologist himself, and other things. And we'd talked about it for a few years before that, but not, I didn't quite know what form that would take. And then this happened, and he was free. He was in New York, and so it happened. And I'm glad
mm,
it, you know,
yeah.
there's actually a couple more tracks that we didn't use.
Oh man, again, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You know, it was a sort of thing like I said, you know, would you want to be a guest on it? Like not necessarily play on everything, but playing a couple of tunes. And you know, and Bill is very busy and he's quite a high profile. And I think the agreement was, well, I'll play on three things. And once we did those three things, he said, well, you know, got any more? So I think he played on like five or six.
oh, beautiful.
But I ended up not using them all, you know, just for various reasons.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Beautiful. Yeah. Have you met Bill already in New York? I mean, I wanted to ask you that because, like, you said, you know, you were coming to Germany like 4 times a year, or you guys were touring Europe a lot. Like, uh, when was the first time you came to Europe as a professional musician? I mean, I know you did like all those records in mid '80s with Previte and Herb and Marty Ehrlich, and when did that start for you? And
Well, you know, I lived in Ireland for I went to college there,
really? Oh,
and
wow.
I'd been there a bit. I'd been there as a kid, and so I lived in Ireland from 78 to 82. In
Oh,
fact,
wow.
I played with the big break for me. There's a fantastic guitarist there named Louis Stewart.
Sure, he's like the legend of Irish jazz. Yeah, I know Ronan Guilfoyle. He played with
Oh,
him. I know Ronan. So, yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
so I met all those. I started playing with Louis when I was 19,
Wow.
and I met Ronan and Connor. I played in a band with his brother Connor,
I really.
and all the, you know, the younger Irish musicians and older Irish musicians. So that was, you know, I lived in Europe, and um
Interesting.
so I was, you know, I was playing as a professional, you know. And Louis, like you say, you know, he was a legend. And you know, I was in, let's just say I was in way over my head, but you know, I learned fast. And I think again the fact that I was American and was from New York, and it was a time, in Ireland where most immigration was going the other way. You
Sure.
know, most Irish people were going to America, not the joke is, you know, Lindsey was the only one coming the other way. But you know, I'm glad I did. You know, it was a huge
Beautiful.
profound effect on my life and on my music. And while I was there, there was a thing put together called the Euro Jazz Orchestra, and every country in the EU at the time, which is 1980, um, was invited to send a few musicians
Mm.
to be a part of this band in London. And and I was one of the people who was chosen to go from Ireland. And there's a great there are a lot of great musicians there, a lot of whom I'm still in touch with. One was in particular was this tenor saxophone player named Matthias Schubert. Do you know that name?
Sure, of course, yeah.
And we became great friends, and just just a terrific guy, terrific player. In fact, when I say in touch, I haven't talked to him in far too long. I lost touch with him kind of during COVID. I hear he's still well, at least, but and we became good friends. And I think the first time I went like to mainland Europe to play was with Matthias.
Okay.
When I was 21 or whatever I would have been.
Interesting. And then you went back to New York and
went back to New York. Yeah, I went back to New York in '82.
Okay.
And I had a scholarship to go to Juilliard, the Juilliard School in New York, because I played classical bass also.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
I thought maybe that's what I wanted to do. I go to Juilliard kind of convinced me, no, that's probably not what I should be doing.
Yeah.
This is before they had jazz there at Juilliard, but there were a few people who played, among whom was Wynton Marsalis was there when I was there. A great Russian piano player named Simon Nabatov.
Oh, sure, I know Simon. Yeah, he's in Cologne now. Yeah, he is from Cologne. But yeah.
Yeah, he's been in Cologne for decades.
Yeah.
He was there at the same time, and he was really into playing, and so yeah, I came back to New York to go to Juilliard in '82.
How did you then get integrated in this so-called downtown scene? I mean, and what was how did all those connections happen? I mean, when I talk to so many guys like with Bobby or Byrne or Wayne Horowitz and all these amazing players, there must have been so much creativity going on. Or how was the scene like? I mean,
there was, man. Anyway, yeah, the downtown thing. That's interesting. It's an interesting question because I had met Bobby Previte, now known as the great Bobby Previte. He hadn't come to New York much earlier, much before that. It was 1983, and you should ask. He tells a great story about the first time we met and we played. I won't tell it because he tells it much better.
Okay.
But we got hired.
Once. Okay.
We got hired to back a singer, and it was a sort of inconsequential gig. We hit it off right away. We became friends. He being from Western New York, he knew people like Elliot Sharp, who was living in New York at the time, he'd been in New York a few years at that stage. and he was sort of in that beginning scene, like with people like Wayne Horowitz, John Zorn, people like that. And so when I came back, I came back another time from living in Ireland. I came back in '84, I guess. And the start of it was I did a gig with Bobby, Tim Byrne, John Zorn, and Bill Frisell, none of whom I knew.
Beautiful.
None of whom were the legends they have since become. Playing the music of Hank Mobley and Kenny Dorham. That was the gig.
Oh man, okay. Wow, man.
And it was at this loft, this kind of performance loft in the East Village called Chandelier, because these people they had like an old chandelier, kind of incongruously hanging in the middle of the room. And if maybe there were 25 people there, if that, and it was just a whole new way to think, a whole new way to play. They seemed to like the way I played, and just that was kind of the start of it, really. It's sort of, I believe it was recorded, and I heard for years like it was sort of like a collector's item. Like,
really? Oh, okay.
You met Tim Byrne and John Zorn playing, Hank Mobley. Well, it was kind of,
I mean,
it was an interesting situation, and that's how it started, and I just sort of met people who met and who knew other people, and there's quite a scene down there of these little clubs and just little places to play and hang
Yeah.
out. And then of course the knitting factory happened, which is kind of crucial in my view.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, knitting factory, I think, opened around 85, maybe. Maybe it was a little later. There are other historians who would know that better than
Yeah.
me.
Sure. Sure. No. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of. Yeah.
But that was sort of crucial because that everything sort of coalesced around that place because it was a very open place and all these people doing interesting things and crazy things
Mm.
and not so crazy things. You know, they all came together and they had a place to play. And then they had a place to be heard, and one thing led to another. And that was really I think that was the catalyst, in my view. Some people might think differently, but in my view, that was the catalyst.
Yeah. Of all these bands and yeah projects going on and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's where I first, I'd met Wayne Horvitz by then. People like Steve Coleman played there. Um, Vernon Reed.
Mm. Oh yeah.
Um, the list goes on and on. And then the big thing about that, 19 spring of 1990, they did that big tour of Europe. They took three quote unquote rock bands and three quote unquote jazz bands just to say, well, this is kind of what's happening at the Knitting Factory, this little place, Houston Street in New
Yeah.
York. And we went all over Europe. We went to Ljubljana, actually. We played in Ljubljana on that tour.
Which group were you with Myra? Was that already?
With
No.
Myra Melford,
With
yeah.
Myra. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Okay.
she, who I barely knew before we did that.
Mm.
But
How
she'd
did you
heard
get
me.
that gig? I mean, she called you or?
She played, she played, I guess she heard me playing with somebody.
Mm. I
And
love the
like,
trio with Reggie on drums.
yeah,
It's such a beautiful. You had such a nice connection with him, actually. I mean,
yeah, I agree.
yeah.
Yeah. I had played with Reggie through with Muhal Richard Abrams.
Wow. Yeah. 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 Exactly.
Yeah. And that came about through Marty Ehrlich, who I'd met through Bobby,
It's like yeah. 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 How was
Yeah.
Muhal? Right. Like, what was that
Oh, that
experience
was
like for you?
oh, it was great, man. It was great. I mean, he was just, he was kind of a father figure,
Mm.
to a lot of people, and it was just, he just done so much in the music. I realized he was younger than I am now, but it just seemed like he was so much older, had done so many things, had been through so many things, knew so many people, and had written so much great music. Had so many great firsthand stories that weren't
Yeah.
just stories. They were instructive. If you listened and paid attention, they were instructive, and it made you think. So that was a big thing. Touring with. I mean, that was before the Knitting Factory thing. I did this big tour of Europe with him and Greg Osby
Mm.
and Reggie. Which
Wow.
was, it was terrific. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mentioned, I mean, speaking of Reggie and, mentioning Marty and Tim Byrne, and there is Herb also, I mean, obviously.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how did then Never No More happen, which I mentioned before? And, I mean, when was the moment? Did you already lead bands before? Or, like, how did you decide, like, okay, shit, I want to become a band leader? What's the story behind that one?
That's a good question. Before I answer that, I wanted to show you something here. I have this handy. I don't know if you can see it. This is this picture I love of me and Muhal.
Oh, wow. That's a beautiful, wow, check out the pencil. I love that.
And one thing he dug about me was, I could read. I could read his music. Some of his music was quite complex. It was quite hard to read. And I remember like the first time we played, he put some things in front of me, and he was kind of like, yeah, yeah, that's what it's supposed to sound. Like I was actually reading it for the first time. So hence the pencil.
It's beautiful. That's a nice photo. That's a really cool photo. Yeah, because you had classical background, right? So you could basically read anything, more or less. I mean,
Well, I still can't read anything,
I
but
mean, yeah.
but I could read. Yes, I was. There was one thing I had going for me. Yes, that was one thing I had happening. Oh, and I'd be remiss if I didn't show this photo. This is my guru, my mentor. This is the great Milt Hinton.
Yeah.
And he was the one who really, took me on and
Oh, really?
revealed the mysteries.
Also, you studied with him, or?
Yeah, it was informal. It was more informal. He was one of the deepest, nicest, most spiritual human beings
Hmm.
ever. And it was more, I'd go out to his place and I'd play for him and he'd offer helpful criticism. And then he'd play me records and
Yeah.
show me films. And, I mean, it's jazz history. It was jazz history, it was American history, it was music history. It was very profound. Very profound. But to get back to your question,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was
Sorry.
about Never No More. No, I had not really led bands before. I mean, I sort of had. I had ideas. When I was in Ireland, there's a group of us young players, and we played original music. We played our own music. We were learning. So I'd done some of that. I'd written some things, and I put that thing together from players that I was playing with who I liked, and I thought would be able to realize the sound I was hearing. And so that's how it came about.
How did you write the music? I mean, what was your process? Because I really love the tunes on that record. I mean, such nice melodies, and
Well, thank you.
like what was your process in writing, like, and arranging, actually? I mean.
Good question. A few of them, I have to say, came in dreams. Dreams. And I have found, I don't know about you, but I've always found if something comes in a dream, I take that very seriously because that's coming from somewhere other
Yeah.
place. Whether you believe in the great beyond or it's coming from your unconscious, I'm not editing that or judging it. I pay attention to that. So a few of those were kind of gifts like that. So a few of those pieces were like that. And then I began to think, well, how would I want this to sound? And I thought about these players who I was playing with, who I liked and I enjoyed, and how would they play this music?
Yeah.
The melodic thing, I think that's always been important to me. I think it's partly because of the Irish music thing, which is all about melody. It's like the melodies are the
Exactly.
story.
Yeah.
They're the lifeblood of it. So I think that's part of it. That's always affected me.
Yeah.
I've been told that's something I have going for me. So I pay attention to that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. It's many of your, the players you play with, like, we mentioned Frizzell or, Marty, obviously. It's like all these, you guys, when you compose, it's the melody is so important, and, which is nowadays many times quite put aside just for the sake of complexity, I guess, or,
Yeah.
and it's
I
so
know what
nice
you
to
mean.
hear a nice melody, right? I mean, at least for me, I don't know, it's like,
Yeah, I know what you mean. I'm not that smart. I can't write music that complex. I've tried. I just can't do it. So sorry, that's just the way it is.
No, it's it's just the beauty of the melody. That's
Yeah.
I really like that. It's so nice, yeah.
Good. Thank you. Thank you.
How did you then like work on your records? Don't Count on Glory and all these Undiscovered Country and all these records. How did you decide where to go as a band leader, or what was your process there when deciding?
That's good. Good question. I'm blown away that you know these records. Yeah, it's
Oh
very
no, I mean I love the music, man. I'm just like I'm.
It's very
No.
encouraging, man. I appreciate it. I just feel I felt like through that time, if I had something to say, as an artist, you know yourself, if you feel like you have something to say, it needs to get out there some kind of way, which is sort of why at the moment I'm a little adrift because I'm not quite sure where to go next. But I always felt like when I formed that quartet with
With Jeff, yeah.
Jeff and Neil and Irwin, I that's something I really wanted to express, and that's the sound I was hearing, and those are the guys I was hearing playing it. Like Irwin, I didn't know any American players who played like that.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
Um,
It's a
a
different,
lot of great players. Don't get me wrong. Just that
different
particular,
sensibility, and yeah,
yeah. I was to get back to that book I was reading. A lot at the time, a lot of people couldn't understand why Miles had Bill Evans in his band. That's what he was hearing. He said not
yeah,
that there weren't other great piano. He could have had the pick of any piano player he wanted, but that
yeah.
guy Bill was doing what he wanted to hear. You know what I mean? So I kind of felt like that's what I was wanted to express. So that quartet helped do that, and we did a couple of tours. We did a couple of nice tours actually.
In Europe as well, or
Yeah,
oh,
yeah,
really? Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. Which was, they were hard. It was hard traveling, but musically it was great. I still remember, the second record we made in Brussels, like in kind of in the middle of a tour, or actually it was at the end of a tour. So we had the wind behind us, and
Yeah,
I remember we did a gig like the night after we finished recording, and I wish I'd recorded that because that gig was just out of control. It was just so free, and um, I get goosebumps just thinking about it. I wish maybe somebody did record and I don't know about it, but the guys were just playing, just, just taking no chances, taking so many chances, and all of them were succeeding. It's just it was beautiful. It was a beautiful, it's a beautiful thing. It's like the way jazz music should be.
yeah, yeah.
But then don't count the glory. That was another thing. I was just hearing this music and I was thinking of who I wanted to play it. And I really, I'm a huge fan of Brian Lynch. I just think he just blows me away. I mean, he's, I saw a thing this week, they used to call Kenny Dorham the uncrowned king back in his day. I think that's what Brian is, man. He's such an incredible,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, not only an incredible trumpet player, but just such a great musician and improviser.
Composer, yeah.
The way he thinks, just his sound is so brilliant. Every time I hear him play, I think, that's what the trumpet should sound like. You know what I mean? Anyway, so that was a big impetus of it. We've been talking about playing. We kind of moved into different circles. He was
Yeah,
in, Latin
yeah.
jazz circles, and had been in more straight ahead things. But I just love playing. And earlier on, back in the 80s, he'd always just killed me. And so that was a big part of it. To have I want to have some reason to play with him, make a record with him.
Mm,
So that's a lot of what that record was about.
And Allison was also nice. I think she's on that
Yeah.
one, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Um, really nice when, again, like you with the drummers. I love your connections with the drummers. Like also on that one record, I think with Herb, like with Joey Barron. I think it's
Yeah.
with Joey. I really love how you hooked up with Joey on that one. I mean,
Yeah. Well,
wish you guys did more.
who couldn't hook up with Joey?
Yeah, yeah, it's easy, right?
You can't hook up with Joey. It's not going to happen with anybody.
You should stop playing. Yeah, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, we did. Well, there's that one record, and then we did a live record too, the live in Villa.
Oh yeah, exactly. That excerpts. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's cool. Yeah.
yeah,
But yeah, I've always had a lot of very strong connections with drummers, and I love the way Allison plays. I from the first time I met her, it's like, wow.
yeah.
Not because she was playing all kinds of stuff. It just felt so right. I mean, that's what it's about. Like
Hmm.
perfection. Man. It's it's not even so much what you play, but how you play.
Exactly.
That's
Yeah.
I love playing with her, and she's on Undiscovered Country too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the last one you did was like basically a bass solo, and then you did a couple of duo
Yeah,
stuff with drums,
with
right? As
Jeff
well.
Berman. With
Speaking
Jeff
of
Berman.
connection with drums, yeah. I mean, that's
Yeah,
a nice one.
absolutely. Well, he's a great musician too, and he's more a percussionist than a drummer. He's a percussionist who plays drums rather than the other way around. So he thinks like a percussionist,
Mhm.
like Airto or someone like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Great. He and vibes. He plays great vibes too.
Mm.
He's great and piano. He's a great musician. Great
Yeah.
musician.
Yeah, I love you did that. I love the solo stuff you did because you have such a nice strong sound, and then to hear you solo playing is just like, ah, man, that's beautiful. Was nice. I hope you'll do another one like just solo bass. It's like I love that.
Thank you.
Like
Thank you.
you guys, like if I hear like Formanek or Mark Elias or yourself, it's just like, you can listen for an hour of that. Like, okay,
Oh, thank you.
yeah, it's beautiful.
It was something I'd wanted to do for a long time. I mean, I didn't think anybody would really be interested, because it is kind of a esoteric thing, let's
Yeah,
face it.
definitely. Yeah.
It's not like solo piano or solo guitar, you know what I mean? But it got a little more attention than I thought it would, really, and I was happy with it.
Mm.
I was very inspired by the ones Dave Holland did,
Oh man.
Miroslav, that
Oh
one
yeah.
of his. These guys just really inspired me. And I mean, um, Gary Peacock.
Gary. Yeah.
Gary
Yeah.
Peacock.
Exactly.
It's December Poems, I think, is
Oh
the
yeah.
name.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Niciem, I think it's it. Yeah.
Although he did a lot of there's a good bit of overdub on that
Yeah.
one, but it's very inspiring.
All these guys. Yeah.
It felt like it was something I needed to do, whether anybody else was interested or not. So I appreciate. Thank you for bringing it up. Thank you for listening to it.
Yeah. It's beautiful, man. It's really nice. I mean, really nice.
And not only that, I think around that time I got hip to that guy Renaud Garcia Fons.
Oh man. Whew. Have you seen
And
him
that
live? I've seen him live 2 times. That's like, I mean, he has 5 strings, and obviously, like, the higher register what he plays, that's insane. That's really, oh man.
when I heard that, my first reaction was, yeah, man, that's just not fair. That's just not fair.
Yeah.
But and the looping and everything, but what a technique.
Yeah.
And the thing that just blows my mind about him is, I mean, it's never out of tune, and I mean never.
Yeah.
I mean never. I've never even heard a great classical bass player.
Yeah. With the bow, man, he's insane. That's insane. Yeah.
I mean, the first time I heard it, I said, well, a new standard has been set, which I know I will never reach. That's for damn sure.
I'm surprised you know him because, like, I think in the States almost no one knows him. If you mention his name, it's like very, very hidden. I mean, he's performing mostly France and
Yeah.
Germany, Austria, but yeah,
Yeah.
nice that you know
I
him.
guess technically he's French technically, but he's from like the Pyrenees, like the
Yeah,
border.
it's like Spanish,
Yeah,
Spain, yeah,
yeah,
Spain, France border, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Kind of almost a gypsy vibe going on, slightly a bit like, but yeah, he's playing, man, and the compositions. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, the Mediterranean record, that
yeah,
one.
exactly, yeah,
You could listen to it forever. It's just so inventive and
yeah,
so varied, and just so it's things I'd never heard before. And musicians I didn't know about, and that's what I dig. I just dig hearing new people doing new things that I didn't know about. Just
mm,
expand my world.
yeah, yeah. Especially in Europe nowadays, it's
Yeah,
I mean, there's so
yeah,
many players, and
yeah,
it's insane. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
It's beautiful.
yeah. But
a
it's just
great.
like I keep discovering like I have this one like next to me, like the Penguin Guide to Jazz, and I always like I have keep reading, then I Google something or listen to a record. I'm like, shit, man, I didn't know this, you know. And
Yeah, yeah,
like one guy does like tons of stuff, and I mean that's the beauty about it. Just
yeah,
it's
yeah,
endless, so it's
yeah,
great.
yeah, yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. It's funny, a guy I recorded, the one who's a guest on Discover Country, Andy Irvine
Hmm.
from Ireland.
Yeah.
I played one of his record. He's been a hero of mine for decades. He was a legend of Irish music. He came to Slovenia and Romania, in the mid '60s when it was
Wow.
not easy and it was
Well, it's
not
Yugoslavia.
cool,
Yeah.
you know, um, and got deep into the music, got deep into the folk music. He has several songs where he references Ljubljana and references
Really?
other,
Oh man, I
yeah,
have to check it out. Okay.
yeah. I mean, he got into like the odd rhythms, and he'd never heard it before, but he brought that back to Ireland and brought a lot of that into, he was an innovator.
Mm.
He's been he was a special guest on my record. I was on his records, and that's another record I have in the can. I again kind of derailed by COVID and what I was personally going through at the time. We I we talked about doing a note. He'd always wanted to do like standards, like that he grew up with. His mother was a actress and singer mostly on the London stage, and
Mm.
mine was too, mostly in New York. I come from a show business family.
Mm. Oh, really? Okay.
And he said, I know I don't. This isn't really my. He was scared to do it. It was outside his comfort zone. So he came over and we tried to do a thing, but we didn't finish it. And I'd love to finish it somehow, at least some of it.
But it's standards, or
Standards,
oh
yeah.
man, yeah. But because you haven't done so many standards on records, right? I mean, it would be
No,
yeah.
it was standards, but my idea was to have like with an Irish or Celtic
Yeah, touch.
vibe to it. And I had a few. In fact, I still have the song list here. I have it here like to remind me. And like here's some of the ones we did. We did um a couple of songs of his, which are beautiful, which I arranged. A song called Autumn Gold, which was influenced by his time in former Yugoslavia.
Mm. Wow.
Quite a famous song called The West Coast of Clare,
Ah, don't know.
kind of a legend. And then here's some of the ones he wanted to do was I'll Be Seeing You, These
Wow.
Foolish Things, The Nearness of You,
Beautiful songs. Yeah.
Nightingale Sang in Berkeley Square, I
Yeah.
Only Have Eyes for You, I guess I'll have to change my plans. I get a kick out of you until the real thing comes along. You know, we,
Beautiful tunes. Yeah.
it would have taken, I tried to make it like a jazz record, and you know how it is. A jazz record, you rehearse or maybe you don't rehearse. You go to the studio for a day, maybe two if you're lucky, and mix it and you're done. You know, we should have taken at least 2 weeks
Mm.
to do it. And that's what it would take to finish it. He's in his early 80s now, and he's very deeply committed to playing and touring. But he says, I only have limited. I kind of have to concentrate on my things, which is fair enough. But maybe I don't know. Maybe after this interview, maybe I'll call him and maybe we'll try to finish this thing because it's sort of half finished.
Oh man, yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Sort of half finished. It's with himself and a great guitar player who I played with when I lived in Dublin named Dave O'Rourke.
Don't know him. Okay.
Is here now. He's made quite a name for himself as an arranger.
Mm.
Wonderful. Really kind of taught himself and is quite in demand as an arranger here. But great straight
Check him
ahead.
out. Mm.
He was a disciple of Louis also. So it was with Dave and Jeff played drums on it. Who had
Mm.
played
Beautiful.
Jeff Byrne. So that's another one that's in the can.
Okay,
So
come on. Okay.
those, you know. And I think some of the arrangements I was quite happy with. I had ideas incorporating space for, more Irish instruments and, a lot of those things, they were influenced, I think, by folk melodies and, it's not too big a stretch and it's not like trying to graft something on that doesn't belong there.
Yeah.
I've never been a big fan of that, especially. you know, because it usually doesn't work, and
Yeah.
it doesn't come across as being sincere somehow. But we'll see. We'll see. I mean, he's got a wonderful singing voice for that music. You know, he didn't think so. He was very insecure about it. But I felt just, you know, just do what you do. Do what you do. You know, it'll be fine.
Beautiful. Oh man, but that's good news. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I hope you'll get motivated and start putting out some stuff. You know, it's
Thank you, man.
so
Thank you for
would be nice.
saying that. I
Yeah, I
appreciate
mean,
I need to
mm,
hear that. Thank you.
yeah, I know we all do. We all do. Every now and then it's like, why am I doing this? But then, yeah, the people are listening. I think. I guess. I hope.
Yeah, I think they are. You know,
You know.
we lose sight of that. You know, I
Yeah.
think people are listening and they are into it.
Yeah.
And no, we're never going to sell a million records, but nobody ever did really. You know, you know,
In this music, no. Yeah. Yeah.
you know, if you listen to all those great recordings, all the great live recordings, with very rare exceptions, you know, listen to like, you know, Coltrane at the Village Vanguard or whatever, you know, these historic record. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, I was in bed and I was listening to I had the radio on, and it was that classic Chasing the Train,
Yeah.
one from Live at the Village Vanguard.
Yeah.
And I hadn't heard it in a long time, and I was just listening there going, holy
I
shit.
know. When you hear those records, it's amazing, right? Like,
You know, it's
yeah.
just, you know, what the level that they were, the intensity with which they were playing, and you realize why this music is legendary. And then it finishes, and you hear like, you know, maybe there was 50 people,
Exactly. Yeah.
maybe 70, maybe at the most. You know, this music it's been played for audiences of dozens.
Yeah.
That's how it's progressed, but dozens at a time. You know, it's not like the Rolling Stones or,
Yeah.
you know, it's a whole different model of expression. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not knocking. I mean, I like going to see stadium concerts too. You know, I dig the Rolling Stones too. You know, I grew up with that too. You know, I'm not knocking it. It's a different world though. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
And I
more
think,
intimate. That's why I love it. You know, it's just
yeah,
like to sit next to a drummer and
yeah,
you know, I've heard stories like of people sitting next to Elvin or
yeah,
someone like that on a concert, like in the Village Vanguard. I don't know who told me that story actually, but you know, like 1 meter away from Elvin, and it's just like, and you
yeah.
feel the sweat on yourself. And I mean,
Well,
that's only on a jazz concert, right? I mean,
yeah, I have a story like that. I sat not a meter away, but I don't know, 2 meters away
yeah, yeah.
from Elvin. And the one thing I mean, it was great, but the one thing I remember, it was with Pat LaBarbera, the band
Yeah.
Pat LaBarbera in the 80s. I mean, it might have been with Ronan, in fact. We might have, I saw him a few times. One time was with Ronan. But I remember they played a ballad, and it was sort of like a walking ballad. And during bassist was Gene Perla, who's terrific.
Yeah, sure.
He's the other guy you should talk to.
Oh, I
Very,
did. Man,
oh, did
that was
oh, okay.
so many stories. You
Yeah.
know, one of the
Yeah.
most underrated cats, I think, Gene.
Oh, definitely. But I guess Gene was soloing, and Elvin was playing on the hi-hat. He was going like just going, but it was so intense. It's not that it was loud, but there was like an intensity to it.
Mm.
Like every time he'd hit it, I was like on a ballad, on a ballad. You know, never mind like the ones that were supposed to be loud. You know, it's like, oh man. You know, you hear things like that, it affects you. You know, if you're a
Yeah,
musician, it
yeah,
affects, changes your chemistry, it changes your molecules. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah,
You
definitely.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love that. I mean, that's why it's like a disease, right? You start playing this music and you know it's not gonna be for the money, more or less. It's just,
Yeah.
I mean, hopefully you get some money. Obviously, we have to pay the bills and, but still, if, you just do it for the love, I guess, because you want to and you have these experiences and
Yeah.
which any other types of music, I don't know if they give you. I don't know.
Well, it's a spiritual force,
Yeah, yeah,
I think. And, I've heard John McLaughlin say that, that it's a spiritual force. And, that's definitely someone who would make you believe that.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly,
for sure.
exactly. Yeah.
Have you heard him? Have you heard him up close?
McLaughlin, no, just like in a big hall for like
Yeah.
800 people. So yeah,
Yeah.
no.
Well, even that, John
Oh,
McLaughlin played for 800
oh
people.
man, it was
I
amazing.
mean, John McLaughlin should be playing for 8 million people. You know what I mean? I mean, think about it. But he doesn't because what he's doing, you know, it's not for everybody. Not
Yeah,
everybody can take all that at a time. You know what I mean?
yeah, 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 yeah.
Well, yeah, here, and as long as we're on that subject, this is this is a lot, but this is what I see when I walk in my practice room.
Oh man, that's a nice one.
So, this is,
I love it.
you know, like if you ever think you can let your standards drop, you just look at this.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah. I've seen Schofield like last month, and we've been
Uh,
friends for almost 30 years, and he played the duo with Dave Holland, right? And I go backstage and I'm like, "Hey John, how are you?" Blah blah. Blah. I'm like, "Man, you sounded amazing." And he's like, "Yeah, man, Samo, I have to practice." I was like, "What?" Well, you sounded amazing. Yeah, but then I play those forts, trading forts with force with Dave, and it's shit. I have to get my shit together. I was like, John, what? You know, I mean, and he's like,
yeah,
74.
yeah, but if you're a creative musician, it never stops.
Yeah, I went home and I practiced. I mean, I was just like, fuck, yeah,
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 but I mean, you wouldn't be the only one. I could tell all kinds of stories, which I won't, but like musicians like expressing insecurity, like God, like people we worship as gods almost, and and them saying and acting like, yeah, that's I should quit. They're human beings, but if we're artists, we're always going for something that's just out of reach. Maybe we
hmm
can catch some of it sometime, but that doesn't mean we're done, you
yeah,
know?
yeah. And you would think it's bullshitting, but it's not. He's actually
No,
like, yeah, shit, I have to practice. It's amazing,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
motivating, so motivating to hear this stuff. And
yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah, it's humbling and it's a little
Yes,
scary. Well, it can be discouraging and think, well,
yes,
if this guy thinks he's not making it, what hope do I have? What does another
exactly.
mortal like I have? You
Yeah,
know?
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Lindsay, do you have still some plans of coming to Europe in the upcoming months, or have some plans
Not at
for
the
that?
I'd love to. I'd
Hmm.
love to. I'd love to have a reason to. I'd love to.
Yeah.
Um, I don't at the moment.
Okay.
Times have changed, as you know.
Yeah.
Uh, I put together my own tours of Europe and playing at clubs and festivals and but things have changed. You know, the economics have
Yeah. Yeah.
changed,
It's
the dynamics have changed. And I have a theory, and maybe you can tell me, now there's so many great musicians in Europe. It's almost like,
yep.
well, we don't really need you guys anymore. We don't really need you. I mean, if you're Herbie Hancock, or that's one thing, but if you're just like us, hey, we're doing our thing too. I mean, that's one thing I really got when I lived in Belgium. I
Hmm.
realized, these guys are bad motherfuckers. They don't.
The level went up, yeah, really high
Yeah.
in Europe. Yeah.
And I mean, not that I didn't know that already. If you read your jazz histories, guys like Dave Holland, John McLaughlin,
Oh,
Jan Hammer, Miroslav, you know, th those guys didn't come to America to learn how to play. Joe Zawinul,
yeah. Yeah.
those guys could play, man. Those guys could play. That's why when they came to America, they ended up in the best fucking bands there were.
Exactly. Exactly.
Those,
Yeah.
those, those guys, they knew how to play. And I remember seeing an interview with Miroslav one time when he said, yeah, well, the difference was there were a lot of other people also playing on that level, in Czech Republic or
Hmm.
whatever, where, he's saying, there was a couple of guys, but in New York, there were dozens, and all of a sudden I realized I, I had to, I had to be up there all the time,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Drew Grass told me when he came to New York, and like I don't know who called him up, but like they had a gig, and then like that guy, a piano player, must have written down his phone number, right, Drew's, and the guy takes out the book and he writes, Drew Grass, his phone number, and he looks above in the book, and it's like Eddie Gomez and Mark Johnson written in there, and he was like, shit, what am I doing here? I mean, when do I get the call if those guys are there? It's like, but yeah, obviously then you somehow
Yeah,
get
well, at
it.
least, well, the thing is, at least you're on the page.
Yeah, exactly. Already that's
And I think in our music, like in creative music, if you have your own voice
yeah,
and you do what you do, sooner or later you'll find the way. You'll find it might not be the way you expected, it might not be the one you want necessarily, but you'll find the way.
yeah,
I mean, I think that happens over and over again.
yeah,
I remember hearing that shit. I remember hearing Eddie Gomez and realizing, hearing him first, face to face and seeing, I could practice from now till the moon turns to green cheese, and I will never be able to do that.
mm,
But there are things that I do
exactly.
that I do,
Yeah,
and that's what I should concentrate on. If I'm smart, I should concentrate on that. But I remember that in particular, like hearing Eddie. I mean, if you're a bass player, you think, well, good luck, man. Good luck. Not just in terms of
technique
playing
or
bass,
yeah.
which is frightening enough, but just the ideas, the inventiveness, as an improviser, and whoever you care to name, Ron Carter, Dave
Yeah,
Holland, no, I'll never be able to. I'm not them, and I shouldn't be them, and I'm not supposed to be them.
yeah,
They would tell stories about hearing Milt Hinton or Ray Brown or Oscar Pettiford, same kind of thing, and they realized, well, yeah, I'm not them. I'm me, and who am I?
exactly. Yeah, that's so important. Yeah, yeah, cool. Lindsay, I'll not take more of your time, but
It's been a
man,
pleasure talking to you, man.
was
Thank you.
so nice to hear you, share some of these stories. And if you're coming in Europe, drop me a line. We have a
Okay.
nice guest room here at the studio. If
Oh,
you can
great.
stay here and we can play, I can show you around. So
Great, man. I'd love
don't
to.
don't be shy.
That's the only time I've been in Slovenia, I guess. I guess it's the only
With
time.
Myra, right? No, with
Yeah,
that.
with the
Yeah,
knitting
yeah,
factory.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Then it's like they stopped doing. It's gotten harder and harder actually. I mean, for creative music now, yeah, it's a different subject.
Say no more.
I will not even go there because
Yeah,
we ended on such a nice note. So,
yeah.
but yeah,
Well, good luck to you, man. Good luck with
yeah,
your playing, and
you too. Keep me posted if you bring any of those records out. Just please let me know. I mean, I'll follow your Bandcamp and everything.
I will do, man. I will, and I'll get my Bandcamp thing more together, and talking to you has been very inspiring.
Good.
So
I'm happy. I'm happy. Yeah.
thank you, man.
To you
Good
too.
luck.
You too.
All right.
Ciao.
Dr. Jazz.